everyone, and thank you for tuning in. These shows focus on cycling in general and bicycle safety in particular. We air live on the third Tuesday of the month at 7 p.m. on Channel 11. You can view the replays on Channel 23, and at least one replay will air on Channel 11. I would like to extend a special thanks to Baja Fresh of Beaverton for donating today's meal for our show crew volunteers. Today's show is about Washington County's bike programs. Our guest is Tom Tushner, Principal Engineer for Washington County. Tom will explain some of the programs the county has in place, such as planning, capital improvement projects, operations and maintenance projects, surface treatments, engineering, and the West Union Helvetia improvements. Much of the information discussed can be obtained by connecting to www.wc-roads.com. The website will appear on your screen throughout the show. Tom, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Bruce.
Now, you are the Principal Engineer for Washington County. What does a Principal Engineer do?
Well, let me give you a little background first. A civil engineer by degree with a master's degree in public administration from Lewis and Clark College, licensed in both civil and traffic engineering. Currently, I am the principal engineer for the traffic section in the Washington County Department of Land Use and Transportation. My section's responsibilities include traffic analysis. We deal with analysis for impacts of development as well as on capital improvement projects. We manage the traffic signal system for the county, doing everything from design to operations and maintenance. And then I have a group that does traffic operations, which deals with things such as signing and striping on the county's transportation system, as well as we do the Neighborhood Streets program, which is a traffic calming program. And then we also are responsible for the ITS system, the Intelligent Transportation System, which is one of our up-and-coming programs.
So we mentioned in the introduction to the show that the county has various programs in place. And one of those programs that we had discussed previously was the TPR, and then there was another one, TP. Can you explain what that is and what are those projects about? What does TPR stand for example?
TPR stands as an acronym for the Transportation Planning Rule, and it is one of the rules that dictates where we do certain things to our facilities. Actually, it starts with our planning division. And the TP, our transportation plan, is what guides our efforts when we design as well as where we put facilities. We work really hard to do a multimodal transportation system. That is one of the things that we plan for and we try to implement. Part of that is our bike element in our transportation plan. With respect to cycling, the program begins with a planning effort dictated by the TPR, which dictates where we put them, and then that is incorporated into our transportation plan and ultimately leads to capital improvements.
Well, I'd like to ask a question then about this. You talk about the plan and people putting this plan into place. How many people are on the team? Who are we talking about?
Oh, the county is quite large. We have a planning division, we have a capital projects management division that does the capital projects. We have an operations division that does the typical O&M, operations and maintenance of the county's road systems. We have an engineering section that does a lot of the engineering for all of those. And then obviously the administration. So there's quite a few people involved. As far as the planning division, we actually have one planner, a senior planner, who is specifically geared toward the bicycle element of that plan.
So you incorporate the bike facilities into all of your projects, and there's a lot to do with that. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. The TPR actually dictates that we do bike facilities on all collectors and arterials. When it comes to functional classifications of the roadways that are less than a collector, those roadways are assumed to be on-street facilities, in other words, shared facilities. The road is shared with the bikes and autos. For collectors and arterials, we typically will do bike lanes on most of the major arterials, but we might do bikeways, in other words, a widened outside lane to accommodate bikes.
When you say widened bike lanes, what are we talking about? Such as areas on surface, main streets, surface streets, access roads? What kind of roads are we referring to where we're doing the widening?
Our program right now is geared, obviously we have to prioritize, funding is limited, so we prioritize where we put the funds. But on arterial streets, our typical width is a 6-foot bike lane. Streets like Murray Boulevard, Shoals Ferry Road would be examples of where we would add those bike lanes. When it comes to rural sections, we'll do shoulders. A good example of that would be the Roy Rogers Road improvement, where we added 10-foot shoulders to that facility.
Now, I myself, I've ridden that many times, and I like it. I guess I've heard there are some people who may not like those wide shoulders, but yes, there's a real purpose for having wide shoulders like that.
Sure, and it accommodates all kinds of uses. It not only accommodates bikes and peds, but it also helps to get stalled vehicles out of the flow of traffic and can provide a little extra safety for vehicles traveling down the roadway. So again, we're doing multimodal facilities that accommodate all modes of traffic on those facilities. Now,
I was riding down Evergreen today, Evergreen Parkway. I noticed there's a little section there that used to be like gravel and kind of a little bit of grooved road, and you know, it really didn't seem like it was very good surface to ride on as compared to the rest of Evergreen. Now, I noticed today that's nice and smooth, and it's a little bit wider than it was in the past. Is that something that Washington County did, or is that some other road improvement?
Evergreen Road is one of our facilities. My suspicion is you're talking about a maintenance program that may have picked up and gone out and either resurfaced the road, and through our maintenance group we do a number of treatments that will improve the surface for bicyclists as well as motorists, and that can be anything from an overlay to a chip seal to what we call a slurry or a fog seal, which will improve the riding surface for bicyclists.
Well, I've heard a lot of comments that were positive comments. In fact, my assessment of it is that it's very nice surface to ride on today, and as much that it's wider, smoother, and it's the section between Sewell Road, I guess just before you get to Sewell Road when you're traveling west, and just east of the airport is that section. Now, there's another section I've ridden on that seems to have been improved lately, and that's the Cornelius Shefflin section of road that goes out toward Forest Grove. Is that a county project, or is that the reason I'm asking? Because some of these roads that belong to the state, and some of them might belong to the city. So, is that something Washington County would be taking care of?
Yeah, Cornelius Shefflin is our road, and I believe that was done as part of our maintenance group again. Was one that did that. They have limited funding to go out and do capital improvements, but they will, as they go out and do overlays and chip seals, will take the opportunities when they can to widen those roadways. More of our major improvements are actually done through our capital project management group, and they manage the various funds that we get in. Our major source of funding for improvements is our MSTIP program, Major Streets Transportation Improvement Program, and that's the one that funds the more major facilities. If I can refer to our map that we
yes, why don't you go ahead and bring it up, and then we'll see if they can't pull that up for
have
you.
up on the wall here. It shows the various facilities that we've built through the MSTIP program. You can see the Roy Rogers improvement out here, as well as the Tualatin.
Now, that's the
Sherwood.
section in red, is that what we're seeing?
The sections in gold are actually the ones that are already built. There are some sections, it's a little hard to see, but sections in red that are currently planned.
Oh, okay.
The Major Streets Transportation Improvement Program has built quite a few of these. There's a couple other funding sources that we utilize. One is a traffic impact fee. Our land development group, as development comes in, assesses a fee to fund extra capacity improvements on our collector and arterial system, and that fee will fund improvements on these roadways. And then a more minor source of funding is what's called the MTIP program, which is actually federal funds administered through Metro. And it's a competitive program, and it's the Metropolitan Transportation Improvement Program, and it provides funding for more minor projects. Our ITS program, Intelligent Transportation System program, is actually funded through part
So
of
when
that.
you talk about incorporating bike facilities into all the projects, can you just kind of give us this massive overview of what that is? That sounds awfully big.
The Major Streets Transportation Improvement Program is a multi-million-dollar per year program, and is major projects out on the street. So yes, it is a major program, and it does some really, like I say, the improvements are like the 185th Avenue, where they go in and they will actually reconstruct a 2-lane road, take it out to 5 lanes with bike lanes and sidewalks and all the amenities.
Now, does the community get to participate in some of this in the early stages?
You bet. The Capital Improvement Group, our Capital Project Management Group, does an extensive outreach program, and they will hold public outreach to look for bike advocates to sit on their committees and talk about how those facilities look, what's incorporated into the project. That program itself has built about 76 miles of bike lanes, 150 miles of lane itself if you look at a 2-way system.
That sounds awfully vast.
Yeah, and it's a nice system, and eventually we hope to have it all linked together. Right now we've done pretty good at linking some of the facilities together. If you ride Roy Rogers, it connects down to 12th and Sherwood, so it provides a pretty extensive network to ride on.
Now, I noticed there's a section of Jackson School Road that's been improved. Is that also a county road?
Yes, it is.
I think that's a great improvement, because now you're able to get over to North Plains without having to run for your life to get across the highway down in that section. What kind of involvement did you have there? Was there some input from the bicycling community on that at all?
I'm not familiar with what that project undertook there, and that probably was again done through our maintenance group. Our maintenance and operations group is responsible for about 1,300 miles of road.
Wow.
Pretty extensive network, a lot of
And you can't
facilities.
know about all of them.
No, I wish I could, but...
Well, just to let you know that there's a lot of positive feedback on that road as well, because it goes over the Sunset Highway as you come off of Meek Road. You make a right there on Jackson School, and it's very smooth, very wide. It also has lanes wide enough that, you know, just like you suggested with Roy Rogers Road, it's not as wide, but sufficient. Also, the bicycles can traverse that area, going or making the transition from the cars turning right to the bicycles being able to go across the highway and continue, you know, straight on in that right-hand lane, travel in that right-hand lane. I think there's some other things that might be in the works for that I've heard through the grapevine, you know. But when you're talking about the capital improvements and all these things in this large budget, how far out can some of the projects be, and what are some of those that you're looking at right now?
The Capital Group is working on about a 5-year program, and they have projects planned, and again, referring to the map, those projects in red are ones that are going to be developed. They're probably working out to about 2013 right now, and we anticipate that there will be another round of MSTIP projects in the near future out there. Our operations group works out of a different funding source, which is our road fund, and that's an annual program. It's funded out of gas tax dollars.
So if I, as a citizen, and I wanted to make a suggestion for a road improvement, then I could feasibly be 5 years out on something that could actually take place with all the planning and the budgeting and things of that nature. Does that sound about right? I mean, do I have it right?
Yeah, I think you're right about on target. That's probably a pretty optimistic, because there's an awful lot of environmental work that has to occur with projects. We go through, and like I say, an extensive public involvement program that sits down and talks about the facilities. There's a number of alternatives, alignments that affect not only what's incorporated into the design of the project, but how it impacts the community as it goes through. So a lot of discussion takes place, a lot of analysis and planning to get that up.
I would like to invite people to call in. The phone number should be appearing on your screen throughout the show. You become the third person in our conversation when you call in. We'd love to have you call in and say hi, make comments, or ask questions. Now, some of the other things under the capital improvements, you were showing the maps. Who designs these maps, and how often are they updated, and how does the public access them?
Our website is a great link, a great source of information for all kinds of information regarding the county's planned improvements. If you go to the WC-Roads website, it has links to our improvements as well as our existing. as well as the ones that are planned and ones that are underway. The website also provides information regarding closures, events that are taking place. We even provide links to the event planners. Rides that are going to take place. We'll link to websites to let people know what's going on there.
Well, you're talking about rides that are going to take place. Can you give us an example of what kind of rides appear on there, like permitted rides that are group rides? What are we talking about?
Part of what my section does is it issues permits for rides on county facilities. We have to assess the safety of them and then also make sure that the rides are planned safely, work with the Sheriff's Department in making sure that all occurs. The Ride of Silence is the most recent one that we had on there. It actually was not a permitted event, but we did list it on our site and provided a link to the BTC's website.
So another example would be when people go out for the Live Strong ride. Would that be one, the Lance Armstrong thing they do every year or something like that, or MS-150 and those kinds of rides?
Exactly. Those are the ones that are on our website. And we link not only ones that we permit, but anything we hear about. And our website will contain information about what other jurisdictions are doing if we hear of it, and we can link to it. So it's a great source of information, as well as it provide links to the Sheriff's Department for if there are issues out there on the roadway where you see things happening that you want to report to the Sheriff's Department, as well as it provides a link to our road maintenance department if there are road issues out that people see that they want to report to us.
So where do I go, for example, if I want to, as a member of a club or something like that, and I want to do an organized ride, where do I go to do that, to get the permit? Do I go to is there a county location, or do I go into the city? Where do you know where I want to find my way?
You bet. There are a number of links on our website. Actually, if you go to the county's website, you can get to our various departments, and actually my section will issue the permits, so you can contact us directly. There's a phone number, 846-76950, I believe it is, and 7950. And
but if they go on the website, the phone number would be there.
All that information's there.
Well, you do these improvements. You've had the planning. Who assesses these roads and says, okay, this will work for a bicycle, this will work for a truck? I mean, what's the process there?
From an event planning standpoint, we work very closely with the Sheriff's Department, as well as we put a lot of trust in the event coordinators to make sure that they're riding safely. Certainly we make sure that they have insurance and waivers for any of their participants.
Well, we have a few minutes left on this particular topic, and we had some things that we talked about previously on these maps. Now, the county designs the maps, develops these maps, and I noticed I went on a ride this past weekend, and it was a hike and bike ride. Mm-hmm. And the Tualatin Hills Park Foundation had these beautiful maps. Now, how do they get updated on the roads? Because they have us out there riding all over the place. We're riding in parts of the county. How does that information get to them that they can update these maps for their events? Do you interact with these groups and organizations?
Again, we link to other websites for mapping. We have in our transportation plan, we have a bike policy that shows what we plan for our facilities, as well as some of these maps are available on our website, so there are links to them all. I've got up right now our road widening projects that our operations group has done, and this kind of shows some of the widening projects that the operations group does.
I don't think it's showing up. If you can.
And I think it's up on the screen now. And if you look, the projects in red are where our operations group, through our road fund, has done road widening. And these are typically shoulder widenings done as part of overlay programs. Farmington Road is one of the major ones and provides a pretty continuous link. I think you were talking about the Glencoe Zion Church improvements out there. Yes. And then we've got some down on Shoals Ferry, which I think are much better riding facilities. So that's our operations group.
So you had an expanded list of projects, and so you just named a few. What are some of the others that we might be looking forward to having out completed at some point in time?
Well, certainly we've got some improvements going on major roadways. West Union Helvetia is actually slated in the future for a more major improvement. We'll talk later about the more minor improvements that we did as kind of an interim fix. but we've got improvements going out on Saltzman
And
Road.
we have the map up on that, and so we'll be talking about that later on too.
Right, and we've got improvements going on Bethany Boulevard, Saltzman Road. Cornell Road is currently out to bid and will be coming up very quickly here. The intersection of Shoals Ferry and 175th will be improved, realigned. That's an offset intersection right now, and we'll be doing improvements out there.
Well, I'm most interested in the Bethany Boulevard one because I attended a couple of meetings with the Bethany Village Development Coalition, as they used to be called, and now they're called something else. And one of the things they mentioned in one of the meetings is that Bethany Boulevard was going to be improved, and there would also be some bike lane incorporated in that. Are you able to talk about that project at all? Like, when is the project going to begin, and when it might end, or any of those kind, and what they're going to do out there?
I don't have particular dates, but I can probably tell you pretty closely what the improvements will look like. It is an arterial road on our system. It will probably be a 5-lane facility.
Wow.
Which will incorporate 2 lanes in each direction with a center turn lane, and then bike lanes on both sides. And then I believe there are several signals that will be looked at along the corridor. It's certainly been an issue for us, and we would love to have enough funds to go out and improve all facilities, but obviously our funds are restricted, so we're doing the best we can, and we prioritize.
So for all those viewers who I talk to on a regular basis about Bethany Village, at the section where the bike lane runs out and you have this very narrow road, no shoulder, it sounds like that's going to improve in the very near future, if I'm hearing right.
Well, I think it's probably, and again, our website is a good link, and it lists all our projects on our MSTIP program, and it would provide a little better dates on it, or they can contact our capital projects group, and they can certainly provide them a link to one of our project managers, and they can give them details on the project. I believe that one's probably in 2010 to 12, but I'd be guessing, and the link to the website would probably give you better information.
I hope to still be riding then and enjoy those improvements, because I know that's going to be a great improvement in that area. We talked about some things previously. It would be the discussion of sweeping. We talked about the people complaining about they don't see the roads swept and this, that, and the other thing, and I've mentioned to people, well, you know, I have passed up some street sweepers. I don't pass up much, but I have seen them out there. Can you tell us how that program works?
Part of our operations group, one of their charges is to go out and obviously maintain the roadways. So they do everything. They have several programs that they go out on. Sweeping is just one of those. The good news, I think, for the cycling community is that we've recognized that need, heard the input, and actually gone out and purchased a second sweeper. So things should get better in Washington County from a sweeping standpoint.
Yeah, I rode the event, the recent event. I noticed that the roads were swept, and I really felt good about that, because on some of those, you know, you get a lot of branches and some gravel and construction debris. When there's an event that's permitted, is this part of the permit to have the road swept, or is that something they have to request in addition to getting the permit? How does that work when it comes to sweeping?
Well, hopefully as part of the review, they're driving the routes or riding the routes to make sure that they're safe, and part of that is if there is an issue, we certainly want to hear about it, and we can accommodate those. So yeah, we try to stay ahead of that and make sure that those facilities are in good shape. And then again, the really nice link to our website provides a real lot of information for event planners that they can look at and see what events are coming up. Our operations group lists all of their maintenance activities, tries to keep a pretty up-to-date schedule as far as what's going to be happening on roadways. So that not only provides information for the person who wants to ride on a weekend, but also for planning an event. You can see in advance what's going to be happening and which roads are going to be improved. Right. So part of our operations group is not only sweeping, but there's a lot more facets to it. We do 3 things as part of our pavement management program.
And one of those, I understand, is surface treatments. Can you tell? I know one thing about surface treatments. When you ride around different parts of the state, someone has come up with a certain type of chip seal that when you're riding on a bicycle, there's so much drag, and it slows down. It feels like you're pulling a back truck behind you. It's okay in a car. But I see in other areas where there's a form of chip seal, it's nice and smooth to ride on. Can you tell us about those kind of treatments. Are those the surface treatments that we might be looking at?
Yes, I think our pavement management program really has probably three major things that they do to the roadway system. One is overlays, which is a new surface to the roadway, and that's typically where they'll put 2 inches of asphalt on top of the existing surface, either grinding it off or just putting it right on top. That results in the best surface, but is the most expensive per mile.
So when you say over the top, they're not digging up the old asphalt or maybe the old surface, just kind of, when you say grinding it out, just kind of making it worthy so that the asphalt will stick? Is that what we're talking about? Or?
A lot depends on what they're working on. If it's a curb facility, they typically have to grind some off and then they'll put a new surface on. But typically that's about a 2-inch layer they'll put on top, and they'll either add to the surface, the existing surface, or they'll grind it down. The second form is what you were referring to, which is the chip seal program. Right now, our chip seals are done a little differently as a result of the input we got from the bike community. We heard the same types of issues that you were talking about as far as drag. So we worked with them, we sized the aggregate a little differently, and then we do what is our third treatment, which is a fog seal immediately after a chip seal. And the fog seal or slurry seal provides a smoother surface, fills in a lot of the voids, and takes away a lot of that drag. So I think the really good news is that it's very tough to tell our chip seals from some of our overlays because the surfaces come out so well. And we've gotten some really good feedback on when we do a chip seal versus going in and doing an overlay, which is much more expensive. The good news is our dollars stretch further. We have limited road fund dollars to go out and improve the roadways. So when we do chip seals, we're able to do more miles of roadways. So as with all things, it's a trade-off.
Right. What about striping? We kind of look at striping and you go, okay, now we've got asphalt on the road and there's stripes and there's bicycle markings. Who puts those down?
It's all part of the same program.
All of it.
Our maintenance group that goes out and does annual striping program, they restore pavement markings, the arrows, the bike symbols, as well as the stripes on the roadway. Part of the overlay program is certainly included in that contract is to come right afterwards and stripe those roadways. So it's a big operation when they get out there. They cover a lot of miles of roadway. Again, they're trying to stretch the dollars as far as they can. So they use some of the methods, chip seal versus an overlay, or a slurry seal versus a chip seal, to try and stretch those road fund dollars.
I think I would be correct as saying that there aren't too many people who live out here in Washington County that don't discuss the widening of rural roads. Oh, the road's too narrow. I mean, you hear that every day practically. What do we do about widening some of our roads? What is the formula?
Again, it all starts with our planning group, who we have a transportation plan which pretty much can tell you what our road system is going to look like in the future. Boils down a lot to funding. Again, the MISTIP program, the Major Streets Transportation Improvement Program, is the one that funds the most facilities, and it prioritizes how we use our funds and where we use them.
So when you look at the overall program, you're not talking about just picking a road, going out and widening it. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, they work through a coordinating committee to come up with the projects, and then they'll do a public outreach effort to solicit from the public, what do you think needs to be improved, given a limited amount of funding. So,
I've just been advised we have a caller. We have a caller on the air. Could you state your name, please?
This is Darren. I used to be your tenor on the Corzo brand, so I'll have to go ahead and qualify that right off the bat. So good to see you on the TV, and it's a great subject.
I remember you, Darren, that old quartet days.
Yes, and I have two questions. One is on Brookwood. It is so narrow, and I've biked that many times, and I understand it is going for widening. The problem is concern of now. There is no even sidewalk. There's no place to bike in a safe manner through the S-corners, going through the new bridges in the area. What's up with that? Is that project up on par, or it's right by Witch Hazel?
So do you know anything about that area, and how would you respond to that?
I believe there's a current project going on at TV Highway right now to realign the intersection. I'm not familiar with the next phase, which will probably pick up the section that Darren is asking about. I would check the website or contact our Capital Projects Division, and they can probably tell you exactly what's planned.
Great, I have noted that, and I appreciate that. My last question is, as far as motor vehicles and, of course, the inevitable bicycle rider, many times I see motor vehicles going into bike lanes numerous times and using it as a turn lane, such as TV Highway and Cornelius Pass Road. Seen a lot of near misses there, and Baseline and Cornelius Pass Road. What type of enforcement or things happen? I see people doing it all the time, and you know, it's kind of scary.
Darren, do you have your TV on? Your volume turned up?
No, it's down low. Yeah.
Oh, okay. If you could turn it all the way down, I think they're getting feedback in the control room there. I'm happy to hear that you're out riding. I remember many years ago, I used to ride my bike to your house, which was a long ride for me at the time. The thing of it is that motorists and bicyclists, there are a number of each of us that may not know what our responsibilities and obligations are. Some don't know the rules of the road. Some don't know the laws. That's why we suggest that everyone obtain a copy of the Oregon Bicyclist Manual put out by the Department by ODOT, Department of Transportation. Also, if you get the motor vehicle manual, there is also 2 pages there on page, I think it's 75 and 76 or 76, 77, they have some bicycle law. Basically, the motorist yields to the bicyclist. The bicyclist and the motorist yield to pedestrian. And that is not happening out there on a regular basis, although we do have a lot of people who know the law and obey the law and are paying attention to their surroundings. I've been cut off many times, so I know exactly what you're talking about, and a lot of times I can see where the motorist looks somewhat confused as to what their rights and responsibilities are and what the rights of the cyclists are. And I think it's a matter of knowing the law. At an intersection, if on a right turn especially, the bicyclist may be in the right at the moment that they approach that intersection, but the bicyclist should yield for safety. But the bicyclist does have the right-of-way, but may not always be in the right if it's going to cause injury. And I know they will bump you off the road. Sometimes they travel in that lane. There are intersections where they're able to make a right turn like that, you know, legally. But some don't look back, some may not see you. The cyclist has a responsibility of making sure the motorist sees them. Sometimes that happens. If you're riding in a motorist blind spot, it's going to be awfully difficult for them to see you. So I think it's basically obeying the law, paying attention to our surroundings, and sharing the road. And when we do that, then we're looking out for one another. And I think we would have fewer encounters of the ones you just mentioned.
Thank you, Bruce, and thank you to your guests. This is a very good subject, and we'll see you out on the road.
Well, I appreciate the call, and you should go on my website and contact me, so give me some contact information, because I'd love to get together with you on a ride sometime.
Thank you. That would be great.
All right. Thank you for the call.
Bye.
There's a lot of confusion about that, making right turns at the motorist using the right-hand turn lane, and I think that just by brushing up on some of the laws will help some of that. Now, we were talking about what, did you have a comment that you wanted to make?
Yeah,
about
I was going to
that?
say, we certainly view it as we call it the 3 E's, the engineering, education, and enforcement.
Yes.
While we can do a bunch of engineering to provide the lanes, it takes some education, as you mentioned in the ODOT publication, but also some enforcement to reaffirm those laws.
And it's just like you can't, catch all speeders, so you can't really reach all. And the motors and the bicyclists, they have the responsibility of educating themselves. The laws are there, and they change. And I looked at my driver's license was renewed for 10 years. And I thought about that. I have a driver's license renewed for 10 years. The laws are going to change over the next 10 years. They could change drastically. Some could go away. And unless I pick up the handbook or something, I'm not going to make myself aware of those laws unless I hear it on the news or something. So I think it's we're responsible for educating ourselves. Wouldn't you think?
I agree.
Because you do your part. I mean, I'm riding in beautifully marked lanes and I'm getting run off the road. Like Ray Thomas said, he was on as a guest on our last show. If we were a big bus, the cars wouldn't be cutting us off like that.
You bet.
So widening the roads, there's a big thing about doing that when you say, oh, why can't they just widen the roads? There are easements to be considered. There are things that have to be moved out of the way. There's all kinds of planning. Can you tell us a little bit about what takes place there?
Let me start with one of the things that our operations group does is they have a standing committee called ROMAC, Rural Roads Operation Maintenance Advisory Committee. One of the recent members to that committee is Hal Ballard, who is on the BTC, to help balance the rural concerns with the cyclist concerns. One of the things they do is look at the surface treatments. The chip seal is one of the things that they've looked at. When they widen out in rural areas, they're looking at some of those issues and trying to decide where do we spend our dollars best. They advise our operations group on how those things happen. So it's a group that works real hard. They meet once a month, and again, our website has a link and tells a bit about it, shows the agendas for that group, and can tell people when there's pertinent items up there. And they have great influence over what our operations group does.
So some of the projects that may be on the drawing board now through them would be, can you give an example?
Oh, they do annual maintenance program is what our operations group does. They do overlays. It varies from year to year depending on their funding. Specific projects, I don't have a list of specific projects, but again, the website lists specifically projects and dates of when they're going to occur.
So that's how I could find out about what's going on.
Get all that information through the website.
We have another caller on the line. Can you state your name, please?
My name is Larry.
Oh, Larry, do you have a question or comment?
I think I have a question for our guest. It concerns signage, bicycle signage. Is there any development in county, state, or city signage availability that is kind of pro-bicycle, educational, and maybe kind of law enforcement that is on the horizon that would improve safety and help us as bicyclers versus motorists?
Part of our charge in my section is to look at the operation of the roadways. And we follow what's called the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, which dictates how we sign and stripe roadways. We actually look to Oregon Department of Transportation to develop their own version of it, but that is our guide. So we feel that uniformity is really important to sending the message. We do that through stripes, through signs. So I don't know that there's any real drastic moves ahead for us, and certainly a sign cannot dictate the safety of a roadway. What we want to communicate to motorists is where they should be, what is a bike lane, what is not a bike lane, and then also we have a program where we do put up signs, and actually it, I think, started out of ROMAC, which is the one that is for not only farm implements, but also the BTC was instrumental in getting a share the road sign for bicyclists. So we do put up those warning signs to warn the motorists and bicyclists where the road does narrow up and where there may be bikes on it.
So Larry, I'm going to ask you a question. Do you ride in Washington County?
I ride a little bit, yes.
And so have we answered your question?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
I would just, thank you very much.
Well, it sounded like you might have a follow-up to that.
No.
No. Well, we'd like to thank you. We'd like to thank you for the call.
Enjoy your program.
Well, thank you. And we are going to cover a little bit more about road signs later on, and we have a special little presentation that goes along with that. I'm not going to show you the presentation. Tom is. he's the guru over here with the computer. So some of the other projects that we were talking about in widening, you had widening McDaniel Road from Washington to Multnomah County line, and you mentioned ODOT. So there could be several jurisdictions involved in getting some road improvements to a certain point. How does that communication work?
We work very closely with other jurisdictions. It's certainly confusing to the public as to who has jurisdiction of a roadway. Take Farmington Road, for instance. That is actually a state facility, and part of it is a county facility. Shoalsbury is a very similar one, where it was formerly a state facility that the county took over. So we have to work really closely with those jurisdictions on projects. We do joint projects where we will improve them, the state will improve roadways, and then the county will take them over. So it's a bit of negotiations, a bit of doing the joint ventures to try and get roadways improved.
Well, we've kind of jumped ahead on some of our issues, but one thing was that I really enjoyed learning about a couple of years ago, I guess it's been now, the traffic signal devices. There are many different kinds, and there's all kinds of ways they work, and there's new technology happening out there. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, this is in my section, and we do the engineering, and there's several things we do. I've already mentioned the Share the Road program that we have going on, where we'll put up warning signs to inform the motorists as well as the cyclists of where we might expect cyclists on the roadway. The program we have is our signal operation, signal detection, and I've got a little PowerPoint.
Well, if we could hang on to that for a moment, we have another caller on the line.
Okay.
Hi, can you state your name, please?
Yeah, Richard. Hi.
Richard, where are you calling from?
Southeast Portland.
What's your question or comment?
Okay, well, first, how long has Northwest Cycling been around? That's a safety program?
Well, that's the name of our show, and we've done this show for a little over a year and a half now. We started out in a smaller studio, and so our show has grown. We are sponsored by Northwest Bicycle Safety Council, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping motorists, cyclists, and pedestrians share the roads, or safely share the road.
Are they affiliated with Bicycle Transportation Alliance?
We are a member of the BTA.
Okay. Because you've been busy there, obviously preparing for a show, you probably weren't aware of all this on the news about giving tickets for the running the stop signs. Did you hear about that today?
Well, I didn't hear about it today, but I am aware of the fact that cyclists do receive tickets for running stop signs, and especially for rolling stops. And I tell you, go ahead.
This was big news on today. I just because they had a big section on it. I just wanted to say I think bicyclists can really have a better control of what's coming in at an intersection than any car that has the radio blaring away, and whoever's in the car can't hardly see anything till they get up to the intersection. That's why cars need to stop. And I don't always think that bicycles need to stop. I think a little bit of care and just being careful as they come up to a stop sign is really all I think bicyclists need to do.
Well, you know, rolling stops can be dangerous not just because the bicyclist might impact a car, but also each other. I was going through an intersection. There was a four-way stop. I was with a group. The group came to a stop. We proceeded through the intersection, and here comes a bicyclist running the stop sign, and we almost had a crash. I think that you could have, you set up a recipe for chaos and disaster when you allow people not to stop at stop signs. I like what some of the areas are doing now. For example, in Beaverton, they have signs posted in various parts of the city that indicate red means stop. If you're out in North Plains, you better come to a stop and touch down. And if you don't, you're subject to get cited out there. And they have cited people there. There are some sting operations going on around various areas as well. And I think that we should stop. There's no reason not to. It sounds like that you don't agree with that.
Well, I think a little judgment might do it. And I think being careful when they come up to a stop sign, that as a rule, I think bicyclists should be able to go through, because they are so able to hear and see everything at intersections, except I would agree on that other bicycle problem.
Well, a
That's
lot of them are going through them anyway, whether they're being allowed to or not. So I don't know, and changing anything is going to make it any better. Not everyone's going to obey the law.
Right.
And not everyone's going to use good judgment when it comes to someone else's safety. You know, we go around through life sometimes on occasion thinking that nothing's going to happen to us. And you know, and so we have things in place that are more than just good sense. I think that those are things that help us to interact with each other and play nice, number one. We have fewer incidents. You're going to have a lot fewer incidents if you have people obeying those laws. If you had with people turning right on red without stopping, well, you can do that where it's posted, but you have people out there. That's why I get run half of the time, almost get run off the road, is because people are making right turns on red without stopping, especially on red arrows. So they take it a step further. So they're always going to take it a step further in my mind and in my experience. As a motorist, I'll always come to a stop. I have no problem with it. I have no problem with yielding and those kinds of things. So I think that's a good law. Come to a stop, especially at a four-way intersection.
Right. Well, that was all I had.
And how would you respond to that as a Washington County engineer?
Well, I have to agree in that if we're going to design these facilities, we have to make certain assumptions, and if we can't assume that motorists and cyclists are going to do what we're asking them to do, it's awfully tough for us to engineer our way out of these problems. So,
does that answer your question, sir?
Yeah. No, that's fine.
Did you have a follow-up to that?
No, I'm satisfied. I still think being careful is one way to do it, but that's okay.
Well, a lot of people agree with you, so that was my opinion, but I know a lot of people agree with you.
And I will tell you one problem is too many bicyclists get these kind of tickets. They're just going to turn around and go back and get their car where they don't have to worry about that. And that's bad.
Well, the thing of it is, hopefully they don't go get their car and blow the stop sign in their car and get a ticket of another kind. Because you know, the fine is the fine's the same whether you're in your car or bicycle. I think you know that, don't you?
I know, and I think that could be a problem.
Well, it could also hopefully be a deterrent too.
Okay.
I would hope
All right.
so. But I appreciate the call, and I think that was a very good topic, sir.
Okay. Bye.
And have a good evening. Well, I think you're right. You know, you want to know how these things are going to be used. You know, there's the signs, the yellow signs, the speed signs. So you have speed, 35 miles an hour. Then you have a yellow sign that says, on a curve possibly, that says 25 miles an hour. Isn't that kind of the suggested engineer speed or something like that?
Two types of signs. One is a regulatory sign, which is the black on white and is the actual posted speed on a roadway. 25 on local streets. It'll be higher on other facilities. The other is what you're talking about, which is a much smaller sign typically, and it's a black on yellow sign, and that's an advisory. We actually will go out and do what they call a ball bank, which measures the centrifugal force on a curve, and that tells us what we suggest that you can take that curve at, or what we feel is a safe speed to take that curve at.
So there's a lot of engineering and science behind it.
Yes, there is. It's been studied for quite a while, and it's based upon what people will accept as well as what vehicles will handle. And certainly as the technology gets better in vehicles, you know, we're adjusting all that. So.
And I noticed that when you get to an intersection where it says right turn permitted on without stopping at it, where there's a stop sign, and is that something that's done by the engineers, or is that something done by the various cities?
All the regulatory signs, each road authority, such as the county, would be responsible on their roadways, and the cities would do their roads, and the states do their roads. So.
I think you said something very key, what people will accept. Well, we are now ready for our next segment on engineering, since we're there with the video that you had to show on what you're doing to improve roads so that bicycles and cars can interact. You had a little video for us.
You bet. I've got a little PowerPoint slideshow which will walk us there as to what I'm going to talk about here, which is how do we know you're there? And formerly our technology was that we use what's called inductive loops, or loops in the pavement. And in order for us to know that a bike or or a motor vehicle, excuse me, is there, we need to see you. So inductive loops are our current method. It requires a metal or an electrical, and you'll see that there are either diamond loops, is on the left-hand side of the screen, or the round loops, and you can see we have them in the bike lane there. The other form is what we call video detection, and that's actually cameras that we use, and you can see in the picture we've got some cameras mounted up on the mast arm, and this is actually just a video that detects vehicles right now. And I've got a little...
So we're going to see the
video.
clip here on the grid.
And this is actually one of the cameras, and you can see the detection zones that are laid out here in the bike on the left-hand side. And I'll run this very quickly for you. It's pretty short. And you'll see how the lines light up. That means that whatever's entering into that zone is being detected. The bicyclist heading down the bike lane, you'll see the lines light up. And we can set, with each camera, we can set up to 24 of these zones. The good news is as we put these cameras out, one camera can do 24 different zones. You can see the bus, and it does actually block some of the detection. And the detection zones are sensitive enough to pick pedestrians as they go through.
Now it looks like that camera is picking up everything. So if you're walking, riding, or whatever you're doing, you're being picked up on that particular camera.
Yes, it is. And the technology is good enough now, the algorithms, that they can detect what direction you're heading, so we can screen out false calls. And you saw those two cyclists, the one in the right lane was able to get picked up right adjacent to the curb.
Would it be okay to run that again?
Sure.
Can we do that
Sure.
again? I noticed something regarding the left turn lane that I wanted to ask about and point that out, because right now, if you don't know how to trigger the other, what is it, the inductive signal,
Right.
if you don't know how to trigger that, which is in the handbook for bicyclists, you're supposed to lean your bike. It doesn't work 100% of the time, but it seems to work most times. But with this, you don't have to worry about that.
Right. The inductive loops, we have very little latitude in being able to adjust those. We can adjust the sensitivity, but once they're placed in a location, we can't move those. These zones, within seconds, we can move these detection zones up or down the roadway. We can widen them. We can shape them in any shape or form we want to. As you see in this left turn lane, they've put in and actually overlap multiple detection zones so they can pick up anything that's in there. And like I say, this last group, they ride it adjacent to the curb, and they're both picked up. So
if they decided they wanted to make a left turn and they entered that left turn lane, then that video camera is going to pick them up over there, and that'll start the sequence on the light. Is
Yes.
that the key?
Yes, it sends a call to what we call the controller, and it will actually make sure that that phase, the left turn phase or the right turn phase or through phase, comes up. And
So you put these in, how do you know they're going to work? Do you have someone from your office that goes out and tests them on a bike, or how does that work?
you bet. Actually, the first gentleman in the video here is actually one of our technicians on a bike ride through. We have our test bike that we take out to each location, and we'll check. And when we get a complaint, we'll go out and meet. I actually met with the Bicycle Transportation Coalition on site. We went out to a location, had them ride through, and we adjusted the zones as they were standing there. We're able to sit there and watch them. So we actually take a monitor out there and are able to look inside the controller cabinet.
Well, I find that very interesting because I've seen these cameras. Now, they're the ones that are on the big tall poles, is that right? So if someone wanted to see those and actually test it to see if it works, is that what they would look for?
Yeah, you'd look for the cameras on top of either the mast arms or the signal poles, and they're, again, in our PowerPoint, I think we had a picture of some of those cameras.
So how many do we have installed around the county right now, do you know?
About 10% of our system right now, 350 signals, so about 30 to 35 are actually video detection, and to give you an idea of how many we've got.
Now, we talked at one time, I took a training from you, I don't know, it was a couple years ago it seems like now, and you talked about some of the operational problems with marking sweet spots, and I don't remember what that means. Can you tell us a little bit about that when it comes to operational problems with signals and the marking of sweet spots?
One thing my signals group will do, if we get a complaint from a bicyclist that they're not getting picked up, we will actually go out, and if you look behind us, there's a graphic that we use that represents what we will mark for them. We will actually go out on those loops, the inductive loops, which are the diamonds or the circles cut in the pavement. We will mark the spot. We will take our test bike through and mark the spot that's most sensitive. So it gives the cyclist a better chance of being picked up.
We just have a few minutes left, and could you talk about the West Union elevation improvements? We're talking about that intersection a lot, and I know there have been some improvements made recently, and there's some others that are planned.
You bet. Back in about September of '06, we did what's called, part of our charge in my group is to monitor the accidents on the county's roadway system. And we found that this location rose to number 2 on our list. So we took a look at it, and we came in, and I've got the graphic up right now, and it shows what we did at that intersection. We installed an all-way stop on West Union Road, and then the southern leg, which was 2-way at one time, we made 1-way eastbound.
We got about a minute and a half left before we have to sign off, but I would say that the improvements made out there right now have helped because it's changed the traffic pattern to where it would seem somewhat hazardous, and now I feel a little bit more comfortable going through that particular area. The other thing is you put in the stop signs seem to be working, because I ride out there a lot, and I haven't seen anybody doing rolling stops or blowing those stop signs. They seem to be taking that change seriously.
A couple of things we do. We did put in some rumble strips, as well as we did some extensive lead-in signing to let people know that the all-way stop was installed. And then certainly we work very closely with the Sheriff's Department to make sure that they get out there and remind motorists of their duty to stop at those stop signs when we implement that.
You know what? Our time has come to an end, and I would like to thank you very much for coming on the show, and it's very informative, a lot of information. I'd like to extend a special thanks to our crew and to the viewers for watching. And remember one thing, you are responsible for your own safety. Obey the law, pay attention to your surroundings, and please, please share the road. Now, I'll tell you what, that was really some great information about the video detection devices. How long have those been in operation?
I think the county has gotten into it just in the past few years. That's why I say we only have about 30 or 35 locations, but we're real excited about it. We see it being coupled with our operations program where we're replacing some of the inductive loops, and it's very cost effective in our mind. One of the cameras can replace 24 loops, so it's a good program, we think, and it's very productive.
And there's a lot of opportunity to get out and ride on some of these, you know, for our viewers.
Great. We hope.
It's very good.